The ancient celebration of Saturnalia. The alchemist Fulcanelli wrote in The Mystery of the Cathedrals about the connections between the Epiphany Day rituals and the symbolism of alchemy. The child in the cake stands for the gold hidden within the lead, represented by Saturn, which must be divulged and refined through the alchemical process, like a soul being extracted from a human body. He writes, as for the common subject of the work, some call it magnesia lunari. Others, who are more sincere, call it the lead of the wise, vegetable Saturn. Philalethes, Basil Valentine, and the Kamos Polite say, son or child of Saturn. Therefore, brothers, if you pay attention to what I have said about the Epiphany cake, Galette des Rois, you will no longer have any doubt about the subject which you must choose. Its a common name will be clearly known to you. You will then be in possession of this chaos of the wise, in which all hidden secrets exist in potential, as Philalethes asserts, and which the skilled artist will not hesitate to actualize. Open, that is to say, decompose this matter. Try to separate the pure part of it, or its metallic soul, as the sacred expression has it, and you will have the chimeris, the Hermes, the mercury dye, which has within it the mystic gold. Just as St. Christopher carries Jesus, and the ram carries its own fleece, you will understand why the golden fleece is hung on the oak, like the gall of the chimeris, and you will be able to say, without violating the truth, that the old Hermetic oak acts as mother to the secret mercury. By comparing legends and symbols, light will dawn in your mind, and you will know the close affinity which unites the oak to the ram, Saint Christopher to the child king, the good shepherd to the lamb, the Christian counterpart of Hermes Creophorus, the ram bearer, etc. Later on, Fulcanelli describes an image inside a cathedral involving a dragon, which he says, in code, depicted as using its flaming breath to cook a child inside of an Athenor. This child is said to be a king, and the son of the dragon himself, through the rape of a human female, a princess, he says. This monstrous beast, with the grace of some great lizard, used to embrace the Athenor, leaving in its flames the triply crowned little king, who is the son of its violent acts on the dead adulteress. Only the face of the mineral child appears, as it undergoes the baths of fire, mentioned by Nicholas Flamel. It is here swathed and tied up like the figure of the little bather, still found today in Epiphany cakes. Fulcanelli says that the child Mercury, the philosopher's son, shut up in the prison of the Athenor, is like the baby imprisoned within the Epiphany cake. Even the very pastry of the cake obeys the laws of traditional symbology. This pastry is flaky, and our little bather is shut up in it like a bookmarker. This is an interesting confirmation of the matter represented by the Epiphany cake. Sendivogius tells us that the prepared mercury has the aspect and form of a stony mass, crumbly and flaky. If you look at it closely, he says, you will notice that it is all flaky. Indeed, the crystalline layers which form this substance lie one above the other, like the leaves of a book. Then he goes on to say, the popular expression, to take the cake, means to be fortunate. The one who is fortunate enough to find the bean in the cake has no further need for anything. He will never lack money. he will be doubly king by science and by fortune. Here is a drawing depicting the feast of the Epiphany with the king cake ritual. So the message is that the fortunate one is the one who eats the baby, because he gets to be king. But his luck is soon to run out, because as we know, at the very earliest roots of this ritual is the king who pays the price at next year's Saturnalia rite. This is the central mystery upon which all of our social institutions are based. This pattern can be found within society in numerous ways, and can even be measured over the course of vast eons of time. As I stated in Money Grows on the Tree of Knowledge, there is a moral dilemma implied in the story of Kronos Saturn. Saturn is associated with liberty and a golden age of peaceful anarchy. Yet, we know that in order to maintain this form of rule, he killed his own children to prevent them from growing up to overtake him. The only reason the golden age was so golden was because Saturn's children were paying the price of the sacrifice. But this is par for the course. Kronos himself had overthrown his father Uranus, castrated him, and imprisoned him in the depths of the earth. Kronos too had narrowly escaped death as a child, since his father had also tried to kill all of his children at birth, for the same reason. In some versions of the myth, Uranus tried to keep them from being born by imprisoning them within the mother's womb. Since their mother was Gaia, the earth, this meant that they were shut up in Tartarus, the lowest chamber of the underworld, called the prison of the sons of earth. This is also where the Titans were jailed by Zeus as he overthrew them. Here's a picture of the mutilation of Uranus by Saturn. Here is the meaning of this myth. Kronos, Father Time, had lived and ruled, or unruled, for untold eons of time in timeless realm before the coming of Zeus. In this realm there could be no beginning of offspring, or else there would also be death. Thus the birth of children had to be prevented, either by confining them within the womb, as Uranus did, or by swallowing them at birth, as Kronos did, attempting to negate their existence by confining them to another womb of sorts, his gullet. This is exactly what the story of the Garden of Eden indicates. Adam and Eve live in a happily timeless ignorance. They are the children of a God who remains to them invisible, and they are still shut up inside the womb, or within their father's gullet. There they live as parasites, forming a symbiotic relationship with their host, who provides them with all of the sustenance they need. Then one day, a foreign fruit is introduced to them from outside. They are told by their father, the unseen God, not to eat it. But they do anyway, and the initiates in them an awakening to the reality of what they are involved in. As their eyes are opened, they wake up from the dream and realize that they are slowly being digested. At that moment, they are vomited out into the cold, cruel outside world, forced to work for their daily bread, fighting for survival. With their birth, or perhaps their second birth, the passage of time is finally allowed to begin. As we read of the passages of the various ages, from gold to silver, then bronze, iron, and some say stone, we understand that the transition from one eon to the next is always marked by a revolution of a similar sort, in which the disenfranchised son of the king, the rightful inheritor to the throne, escapes death and overtakes his tyrant father. If the father is a divine god-king, as in the oldest myths, he doesn't really die, but instead falls into a death-like sleep, and is imprisoned in the center of the earth. There he waits to be avenged and reincarnated as a new king, reigning over a new age. Here is a depiction of the Golden Age. What these myths of the Golden Age, Garden of Eden, and other primordial paradises really point to is the concept of a cosmic center, a kingdom that doesn't really exist except in the other world, in Potentia. But it is said to be at the heart of our own existence, and its essence can be felt everywhere. It is a place where there is no time as we know it. Rather, all points of time exist simultaneously, and all space as well. This is why the people who live there are said to never grow old. Presently, in our own time, we perceive it as fallen, like Eden, Atlantis, or the sunken Relais of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. But the legends state that there will come a time in the future when a new age will dawn, and the hidden sunken kingdom will rise again, the old king reborn to rule again, instantly transforming our own mundane world into the timeless paradise, formerly relegated to the other world. This is exactly how the relationship between Osiris and Horus was viewed by the Egyptians. There was never a time when Osiris was really alive, ruling his kingdom on earth. From the earliest times, he was thought to be in the center of the earth, in his tomb at the center of the world mountain. His son Horus ruled on the surface as his reincarnation, but it was the existence of the undead Osiris in the underworld that gave Horus's throne its legitimacy. This is also how the realm of the Fisher King is described in the Grail romances, who, like Uranus, has been castrated and now rules over a kingdom out of time. He can never die, but isn't really alive. Only the food from the Grail keeps him alive in this in-between state. His wound will never heal, but continually festers and grows worse whenever Saturn is ascendant in the heavens. We also find hints in the romances that the food of the Grail, which keeps the king alive and the rest of his subjects in perpetual youth, is in fact the flesh and blood of children. This is what the elixir of life is made from is hinted at also in the alchemical text of Europe and in many myths throughout the world. I explore these ideas at length in Money Grows on the Tree of Knowledge. This is the fruit of the tree of life that the gods of Genesis sought to prevent man from obtaining, lest we live forever. In Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parzival, the knight Gawain is sent on a mission by a hermit who looks young, although he is 75 years old. The mission is to find the sword that John the Baptist was beheaded with, which he will need to enter the lands of the Fisher King. The sword belongs to a pagan king named Gurguran, who promises Gawain that he can have it if he will rescue the king's son from a giant who has kidnapped him. Gawain kills the giant, but the boy is strangled to death in the process. Then, in a strange rite, Gurguran chops his son's body into pieces and distributes them to his subjects to eat. Gawain then receives the sword and is led to the Grail banquet at the Fisher King's court, where 12 kings who are hundreds of years old, reminiscent of the 12 Olympian gods, sit around a banquet hall, all looking youthful, except for their gray hair. The Golden Age with Saturn or Kronos is shown flying overhead in his chariot eating a baby. So here's that picture. Okay, he was exiled, and where he built his kingdom, his descendants shared the same names as those of his brother Seth, for a single letter, indicating their non-being. The chronology of their birth is slightly different than that of Seth's descendants. because time has no meaning where they are. Cain, like Saturn, lived in perpetual fear of being killed by one of his descendants in revenge, as it had been prophesied, according to the tales recounted in Louis Ginzberg's book, Legends of the Jews. Thus, in Genesis, Cain cries out to God in lamentation that he must forever remain in hiding, a fugitive and a vagabond, because whosoever findeth me shall slay me. This eventually transpired when he was killed by his descendant Lamech in a hunting accident, since Cain's horns, given to him by God, supposedly as a protective mark to keep him safe from murder, caused him to be mistaken for an animal and shot. Yet another dirty trick from Jehovah. Then, having killed his own ancestor while hunting in the wilderness of the timelessness of Nod, Lamech and all of Cain's descendants ceased to be, or to have ever been. From that moment on, the Bible acknowledges them no more. This is exactly how Edith Hamilton summarizes Homer's description of the underworld of the dead, Hades, in his epic The Odyssey, according to her classic book Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes, where she wrote, "In Homer the underworld is vague, a shadowy place, inhabited by shadows. Nothing is real there. The ghost's existence, if it can be called that, is like a miserable dream. But the underworld is just part of this nebulous realm of the gods, which is clearly separate from our own world, and yet accessible from certain parts of our world, and in some way strangely entangled with it. This larger divine realm came to be termed Olympus by the Greeks, but the exact meaning of this term is hard to specify, as Edith Hamilton explains. The 12 great Olympians were supreme among the gods, who succeeded the Titans. They were called the Olympians because Olympus was their home. What Olympus was, however, is not easy to say. There is no doubt that at first it was held to be a mountaintop, and generally identified with Greece's highest mountain, Mount Olympus in Thessaly, in the northeast of Greece. But even in the earliest Greek poem, the Iliad, this idea is beginning to give way to the idea of an Olympus in some mysterious region far above all the mountains of the earth. In one passage of the Iliad, Zeus talks to the gods from the topmost peak of many-ridged Olympus, clearly a mountain. Even so, it is not heaven. Homer makes Poseidon say that he rules the sea, Hades the dead, Zeus the heavens, but Olympus is common to all three. These are details common to just about any description of the popular motif of the world mountain found in almost every culture around the globe. It is the location of the world tree and the pole that holds the heavens aloft from the earth. The depths of the mountain's caverns and the roots of the tree reach down into the lowest level of existence, while the top of the mountain and the top of the tree reaches the highest level of heaven in existence. Summarizing this entire body of legends from around the world, Julius Evola wrote in The Mystery of the Grail, "These are first and foremost symbols of centrality, the center, the pole, the region in the middle of the earth, the central stone or the foundation, the magnet. Then, symbols of stability, the island surrounded by the waters, the rock, the unshakable stone. Finally, symbols of inviolability and inaccessibility. The invisible are not to be found castle or land, a wild mountain peak, a subterranean region. Moreover, the land of light, the land of the living, the Holy Land, yet again, all the variations of the garden symbolism, which, on the one hand, includes all of the notions of celerity, light, regularity, immortality, and incorruptibility, while on the other hand, it has always had some relationship with the primordial tradition and with the age characterized by gold. Other symbols point to life in the higher sense of the word. Example, the perennial food, the tree of life. To a transcendent knowledge, to an invincible power, everything appears variously mixed in the fantastic, symbolic, or poetic representations that in the various traditions have foreshadowed this constant theme of the invisible regnum and the supreme center of the world, and in itself, its emanations and reproductions. So here's an image of the Grail Castle as the hidden kingdom at the center of the universe. But according to several different researchers, specializing in several different fields, long before and long after the Titanic Golden Age was conquered by Zeus, and the cosmic pole were named Olympus, the ancients thought of the magical realm of World Mountain as being associated with Saturn. As Jocelyn Goodwin writes in Arctos, the polar myth, ancient Iranian astronomers identified the pole as Saturn's womb, and so did the Neoplatonists of Greece. Julius Savola concurs, writing of the kingdom of the pole, that, moreover, according to a classical tradition, after having been the lord of this earth, the king of the Golden Age, Kronos Saturn was dethroned and castrated, that is, deprived of the power to beget, to give life to a new stock. He still lives, though asleep, in a region located in the far north, close to the Arctic Sea, which was also called the Kronid Sea. Here we touch upon what is perhaps the most mind-blowing concept hinted at in this whole collection of myths that we are presently examining. Saturn's kingdom, because it's timeless, is still there, enclosed within a prison of timelessness, surrounded by space-time. His death-like sleep is in fact the prison itself, for, as Plutarch writes, his slumber had been artfully produced in order to chain him, and round about him were many daemons for his guards and servants. His dreams are the shackles which bind him. Like the blissfully ignorant children of the Garden of Eden, he is bound in a hypnotic state by his own illusions. He has switched places with those he devoured. Plutarch writes about Saturn's hidden kingdom of dreams, which he describes as being on an island, in his Morals. I find it worthy of lengthy quotation. The barbarians fable that Saturn is imprisoned by Jupiter, whilst his son lies by his side, as though keeping guard over those islands in the sea, which they call the Sea of Saturn. That sea coast of the mainland Greeks are settled on, around a bay not smaller than the Maeotis, the entrance of which lies almost in a straight line opposite the entrance of the Caspian Sea. Those Greeks call and consider themselves continental people, but islanders all such as inhabit this land of ours, inasmuch as it is surrounded on all sides by the sea, and they believe that the people of Saturn were united. Later, those who wandered about with Hercules, and being left behind there, they rekindled into strength and numbers the Greek element. Then, on the point of extinction, and sinking into the barbarian language, manners, and laws, whence Hercules has the first honors there, and Saturn the second. Plutarch then goes on to describe a strange sacrificial rite in which the servants of Saturn are sent out on perilous voyages to this island, where they serve him for a period of 13 years, after which they have the choice of staying in his realm or returning home. However, it is unclear in what capacity they serve, since Saturn's is a realm of abundance without toil and trouble. It seems to be more of a philosophical academy, akin to the philosophic kingdom of Sir Francis Bacon's New Atlantis. Interestingly, in that book, Bacon used an illustration of Saturn unveiling the naked lady Venus in her secret tomb in the Venusberg, a mythical mountain almost identical in description to Saturn's island. This is a hermetic symbol of the unveiling of the secrets of nature through alchemy, and it is said that whoever unveils Venus is cursed to remain a prisoner in her underworld kingdom forever, within the caverns of her enchanted mountain at the center of the earth, where she rests in a death-like sleep, vivit non vivit, just like Saturn. On Saturn's island, the god teaches them by communicating through apparitions and dreams. That's also how he keeps them on the island. He keeps them in a state of enchantment, just as Venus is said to do to the young men who visit her secret realm, as Plutarch describes it. But when the star of Saturn, which we call the informer, but they call nocturnal, comes into the sign of the bull every 13 years, they, having got ready a long while beforehand all things required for the sacrifice and the games, they send out people appointed by lot in the same number of ships, furnished with provisions and stores necessary for persons intending to cross so vast a sea by dint of rowing, as well as to live a long time in a foreign land. When they have put to sea, they meet, naturally, with different fates. But those who escape from the sea, first of all touch at the foremost isles, which are inhabited by Greeks also, and see the sun setting for less than 1 hour for 30 days in succession. And this interval is night, attended with slight darkness, and a twilight glimmering out of the west. Having spent 90 days there, treated with honor and hospitality, being both considered and entitled holy, thenceforward they voyage with the help of the winds. No other people inhabit the island save themselves and those that have been sent out before. It is indeed allowed to such as have served 13 years in waiting upon the god to return home. But the greatest part prefer to remain there, partly out of habit, partly because they have all things in abundance without toil and trouble, as they pass their time in sacrifices and hymn singing, or in studying legends and philosophy of some sort. For wonderful are both the island and the mildness of the climate, whilst the deity himself has been an obstacle to some when contemplating departure, by manifesting himself to them as to familiars and friends, not by way of dreams or by tokens, but conversing with them in a visible form, with many apparitions and speeches of genii. For Saturn himself is imprisoned in a vast cavern, sleeping upon a rock overlaid with gold, for his sleep has been contrived by Jupiter for his chaining, whilst birds fly down from the rock, which are ordained to carry ambrosia to him, whilst the island is overspread with fragrance, diffused from the rock as from a fountain. Those genii wait upon and nurse Saturn, who had been his companions at the time, when truly he used to reign over both gods and men, and they, being endowed with prophecy, foretell on their own account many things, but important matters, and such as concern the highest things they go down into the cavern, and report as the dreams of Saturn. For whatsoever things Jupiter is devising for the future, Saturn dreams what they are about, and that which is kingly and divine. The stranger having been carried there, as he told us, and waiting upon the god at his leisure, he gained acquaintance with astrology and geometry as far as it is possible to advance, whilst he took up natural science for his department of philosophy. This is the invisible college that the Rosicrucians wrote about. It is the scholomance of Dracula, which, the story goes, 13 specially chosen students would attend each year to learn magic from the master himself, but only one would graduate and be permitted to ride the dragon. This is the same as the devil's school that witches attend when they go to the Sabbath, when they rise the broomstick or the goat, just as Jason rode the golden ram to safety. So too did Mohammed ride the woman horse Barak on the night journey to the furthest mosque, after falling asleep on the magical pillow stone that fell from heaven, which was the foundation stone of the world, and which became the cornerstone of the Kaaba, the holy cube. So too did Jacob glimpse the ladder to heaven in a dream, after sleeping on the stone of Bethel, the house of God, the royal Batil, or thunderstone, that was also said to have fallen to earth from heaven. This is the same as the alchemical magnet of the wise, the metaphorical lodestone that guides initiates to the sacred island where the other world is located. Or rather, perhaps, we should consider that the magnet attracts to the initiate the transcendental location he seeks to find. It brings the hidden kingdom to him, transforming the designated space that he happens to be standing into the sacred space of the other world, where Saturn lies, dreaming. According to Julius Evola, in The Mystery of the Grail, we have seen that of all the places in which the test of the Grail nights occur, the island and the castle seem to be the forefront. The journey to such places should essentially be regarded subspecie inhereratis, that is, in terms of a shift of consciousness to a world that is usually precluded to human beings.